joining us. Those of you grabbing breakfast, grab your stuff, grab your coffee, and we'll get started with Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mike Alameda, who's a member of the Hawaii Island Young Democrats. And we'll bring him up here, and we'll all join in.
Thank you, Tyler. So everyone please stand. And you can go along with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Micah. I'd like to bring up two of our other Young Dems members. First is Jason Kamala-Grukins to lead us in the Star Spangled Banner, and then Kainoa Kaumehiba-Rego to lead us in the state anthem, Hawaii Pono'i. The lyrics are towards the back of your book. It's probably in the third to last page. So Jason and then Kainoa. So thank you, everyone, and aloha, and welcome to our Young Democrats of America Pacific Region Conference and Young Democrats of Hawaii State Conference 2015. I'm Tyler Dos Santos Tam. I'm our 2015 conference chair. Thank you for your applause, but really this day wouldn't be possible without the hard work of many people in the room. I want to acknowledge and thank our planning committee for their hard work, and so for our planning committee members, if they could stand up and be recognized, I want to give them a round of applause. You know who you are. So thank you, everyone. This also wouldn't be possible without our sponsors who have generously given their financial support to allow this conference to happen. Our sponsors are listed in your booklet, but I really want to thank our top-level sponsors, in particular the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Union, Local 675, Representative Sylvia Luke, the Pacific Resource Partnership, Alexander and Baldwin HIPAC, Friends of Marcus Oshiro, Hawaii Lesset, the Hawaii Laborers Union, I see Gino Sequena back there, so thank you, Gino. And the Hawaiian Electric Company. So a round of applause for our sponsors. But you know, the bigger picture, the reason why we're all here as Democrats is thanks to the hard work of numerous people who formed the Hawaii Democratic Party, the party that we know and love today. Some of whom, you know, have famous names that are really well known. Jack Burns, Senator Dan Inouye, William Richardson, Jack Hall, many others. But in addition to those, there are many whose names were not, you know, recorded in history. Those who led strikes on the plantations to fight for workers' rights. Those who organized protests and organized the communities all across the state. And the thousands of voters who ushered in this new era of leadership back in 1954. And I think the most important people in all of this were those who did the simplest but most important thing, which was casting a ballot back then to help create the Hawaii that we know and love today. And we stand on their shoulders, and we owe them a big deal of gratitude. And through their work, now here in Hawaii, you know, we enjoy a strong commitment to workers' rights, a place where we have prepaid health care through employers, which is a state mandate. And we became the first state in the union to codify a woman's right to choose under Governor Jack Burns. But the work is not over. And in fact, the work is ours. It's going to be up to us to continue moving our state forward and to continue that fight. And we've seen the first battles, I think, for our generation through SB 1 and the fight for marriage equality and equal treatment for everyone under the law. And many of our young Democrats here came out to make calls, testify, to organize. But there will be many fights as well in the future. You know, how we can create housing that everyone in this room can afford. You know, how we can create new and cleaner and more sustainable industries here in Hawaii, and how we can build a better education system, among others. There will be many more, and I know everyone in this room is going to be committed to helping to move Hawaii forward in that regard, and that's what this conference really is about. And that's our challenge to consider, not just this weekend, but in the days and weeks and months ahead. So thank you, everyone. I want to bring up our Young Democrats for Hawaii President, Ethan Oki, to say a few words. So welcome, Ethan.
Aloha mai kākou. I'm Ethan Oki. I'm the president of the Young Democrats of Hawaii. First off, I'd like to welcome our Young Democrats of America delegates from the Pacific region, from the great states of California and Washington State. And I'd also like to recognize all our members from across our state, from Hilo all the way to Kauai. It's very important that our membership gets to know who we are throughout the state and not just on Oahu alone. I'd like to also thank the planning committee that we had recognized earlier. I mean, truly, we're going to have a great weekend. We're going to have a great day of panels, discussions, speakers. From actually yesterday, we had a great excursion throughout the many facets of our economy, from our agriculture, from the construction that's going on in our labor union, from our construction that's going on with our transportation at the Hart Center. We need to focus on our theme for this conference, which is He Waiwai Nui Ka Lokahi. In the olden days, we had many wise sayings that we referred to give us guidance. And in that guidance, it allowed us to look towards that goal. And our goal for today and this conference is to be unified, to hold hands across the state, across our ocean, and just amongst each other as Democrats. And I'm excited. I'm glad you guys are all here. I have to give a little shout out. We do the hashtags with social media. So make sure you guys hashtag your Instagram as well as Facebook and all the other things that you guys provide. If not, you guys have a great weekend. Aloha and welcome. I would like to call our beautiful chair from Maui, our Democratic Chair, Stephanie Ohigashi.
Thank you. Good morning. Yeah, I woke up at 2 o'clock, so let's hear that again. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me. It is an honor to be with the Young Democrats. And congratulations to President Oki and the YD chairs across the neighbor islands, Rayton Vares, Dylan Hoosier, Shelton Miyazono, and Ikaika Mahoy. Great job you're doing to pull everyone together today. It's really exciting. I'm stealing words from Ethan, but he's excited. I'm excited. And congratulations also to Tyler for being chair of this conference. And I don't know if this is an annual thing, is it?
Would everyone like it to be?
Oh. Well, I think you got your answer.
All right.
Woohoo! Okay, I like coming to Waikiki. Just a little bit about me. You know that I'm your chair, and I joined the party a few months short of my 36th birthday. And of course I was invited to be a member of the Young Democrats, and of course I said yes. I was so excited to be part of anything back then. While my involvement was brief, I did learn a lot, and I did get involved, and it opened many, many doors to me. So many, but it started being elected as a precinct secretary at Super Tuesday in 1984, all the way to being elected state party chair in 2014. So 30 years of involvement, starting with my Young Democrats experience. So being a Young Dem has its bennies. All right. I like Walter, but I don't like Geraldine Ferraro. I don't like her hair, I don't like her voice, I don't like her shoes, I don't like her clothes. I said, but lady, they come together, they're a team, you gotta vote Democrat, right? Oh yeah, we're gonna vote. That doesn't mean we have to like it. So that got me to thinking that 30 years ago there was still a resistance to having an elected woman, even as vice president. Well, they didn't make it, but I admired Geraldine Ferraro. I admired her spunk and her dedication and her determination to help the Democratic Party. And she said something really cool that I, till today, say all the time. Of course, I saw it in a couple cartoons too, at late night television, but she said, opportunity is a right. It's not a privilege. So remember that. She also said she doesn't like to plan her speeches when she's invited to speak. But then again, I know Geraldine Ferraro, so I had to plan mine, and I did it on the plane. There were 42 volleyball high school players on the plane with me today, yelling and screaming like, yeah, we're gonna whip them. And I don't know why, but I wrote, we're gonna whip them in my speech. And I think I'll save that for 2016. Yeah, because we're gonna whip them. All right. Now, being a young Dem is an exciting time. I met one. I got elected county chair in 1988. That's a long, long time ago, yeah. So this kid, fresh out of college, contacted me and he said, lady, I like to do something for the party and for high school kids. So I said, yeah, what you like to do? Well, I want to make high school Democratic clubs, and then they're going to fold into the Young Democrats and then into the regular Democrats. Can you help me? And I said, sure. And he was a cute guy, fuzzy hair, you know, fresh out of college. He wore bell-bottom pants. He picked me up in his pickup truck. And we went to Kihei and Lahaina, and we formed high school Democratic clubs. And these clubs were specifically given opportunities to meet with our legislators so that they could shadow them. And that was an awesome experience. Well, that young man went on to work. He became a lawyer. He became the director of DLNR. He came home to Maui, became the director of public works. He became a law partner. He became a House of Representatives member, and now he's State Senator Gil Keith Agaran. He had a lot of dreams. He wanted to serve, and he followed his dream. Of course, back then, like I said, he had lots of hair. Today, he has a wife, a dog, a mortgage, but he still has a lot of dreams for this party. He's one of the most dedicated judiciary chairs I know, and a big supporter of you young Democrats. So finally, I'm getting back to the key word today, and that's opportunity. Opportunity is probably the biggest word in the foundation of the Democratic Party, especially for Hawaii, because there was once a long time ago, maybe in the 20s, that people of our multicultural community didn't feel like they had opportunity. They felt locked up and tied. But the Democrats of 1936, of 1954, and 1959 changed that for all of us, right? They caught the wave, and we've been riding it out ever since. And we now have more opportunity than ever before. But like Ethan said, the work is not finished. We got a whole lot more to do. And as I look across this room, I'm really excited. You might not think I'm excited, but I'm excited. Yeah. Because I see future leaders here. I see future community leaders, future elected officials, future directors of departments in county and state organizations, neighborhood boards, all kinds of nonprofits. You are the hope of Hawaii, and you are the hope of Hawaii on your island, and the hope of the Democratic Party. So I'm like you. I want to hear Christine Pelosi sabun hele on down the stage, but I want to say thank you for having me here. I'm enjoying this conference, and have a great time. Mahalo.
Out. So the geography is important. It's also important when you're talking about things like transportation policies and how people get from one place to another. Politics, obviously these are the elected officials in public and party office. What groups are for you or against you, and how well are you playing your politics? Like me, you're in a very blue situation, so a lot of it, as I said before, is that internecine family feud, which can be almost more painful than if you're fighting Republicans. Colleen Hanabusa, whom you had for dinner last night, and we saw at the reception on Thursday night, was telling me that when she was the state Senate president, she'd say to the Republicans, it doesn't help me that there's only a couple of you. There's a few more of you, my members would be united against you and not fighting each other. So, not that she wanted them to win, but from an organizing standpoint, there were challenges in not having two functional political parties. So looking at where are the blocks, who do you have to deal with, and is it possible to have a coalition of people from different factions that come together on an issue, even if they're never going to be for a particular candidate, or are you going to run the same fights about marriage equality or the presidential race or development or whatever it is? Are they going to constantly be through the same lenses of two people who fought each other in a primary and didn't make up, and therefore they're asking their volunteers to carry the grudges, right? So very important to break through those things and understand you need everybody. In terms of the struggles, what do people care about? What are they really struggling about? One of the things my mom talked about yesterday on the House floor was the hot stove that members of Congress go home to, the people in their district who are still touching a hot stove when it comes to what they lost in 2008, that were not made whole. They just simply were not made whole. Their job went away, or their savings went away, or their security went away, or because it did, the mortgage on their home that they were going to save for their retirement, they then took out for their kids' education because they didn't want to do the student loan debt. Or they got into school and they thought they'd get a job, and then the job they got didn't pay for their loans, and they're part of that $1.3 trillion of student loan debt that we have got to figure out a way to reduce and forgive. And I think we ought to do that in exchange for public service. We will see how the currency of that, yeah, okay, there we go, you can clap for that. And we've got to talk about debt-free college, and we say debt-free college, not just community college, but all college, so that we don't get, people saying, well, that's all fine for community college, but what about me? I want to go to four-year college, and what is that? Why are you telling my kid she can go to a two-year college, but not a four-year college because she needs a four-year college certificate to get a job, when it is still true that an African-American woman with a four-year college degree still is less likely to get hired than a white man with a high school degree. So if those are the numbers, and we need to change them, you need to know what people's struggles are and how they want you to try to fix them, and what they're willing to do in that effort. Traditions, the culture and civic events, like the parade that I think Michelle and Bella are off to right now, but what civic traditions are there? You just had your Pride, I think we're having ours in 2 weeks. The Carnival, the Saints holidays, if that's your practice. Where are people tend to be gathered? Where do they tend to be, these civic events? And do you have a presence in them? Does the Democratic Party have a presence in them? When there's some sort of a parade, do members of the party or candidates show up on a regular basis, or only when they're running? Are they invited to do that, or is another way you can get in so people at least see you and know that you're there and being supportive? But taking a look at what those traditions are. It also helps you save a lot of money, because if you have to go register voters, you go to where the parades are, so you don't have to create an event. Someone else has already created that event for you and continues to. And finally, doing the gut check. Do you know people's dreams and challenges? Does your vision of a democratic future help them? And can you win? As I said before, if you can't win, and you want to spend your time and they're willing to give you their money, then go for it. But in the end, you have to assume you're on your own, and all the political patronage in the world isn't going to help you. George Bush had a pretty good line, not many, but some. And one of them was that when he ran for president, he inherited all of his father's enemies and only a few of his friends. And, to a certain degree, that's true. So if you come from a family of public service, or you come from a tradition of public service where you've worked for this, you've been the staffer and now you're going to run, or you come from somebody's block or somebody's team, you've got to go out and earn all that on your own. You may get an introduction, but trust me, if you have a family name, family brand, they'll kick the tires harder. That's part of the way it goes. And second, if you're from an organization, the first thing they're trying to do is say, are you like them? How are you different? Right? So those are the things you need to think about in knowing your community, and we'll talk through that next. Building leadership teams. There are essential teams that have to be built. Mostly it's volunteers. A lot of it comes down to, we'll get to money next, but people say, I can't give you money, I can give you time. And you say, here's how we're going to focus your time. Kitchen cabinet, the close friends and family who you rely on for help. Your finance council, people who can raise you money, but also people who are techies who can maybe donate an operating system to you, or building your website for you so you don't have to build that, pay for it yourself. Or people who can, on the finance council, who will always give you a phone bank or a conference room or a meeting room, things like that they can offer in addition to raising your money. House meeting hosts to take your campaign into the community, and that could be a union hall. A house meeting doesn't have to be in a house. It can be, for a lot of people, I was single for a long time, so I didn't want people in my house, right? It was just, and then my mom got famous, so then I didn't want people in my house for another reason. So I would have house meetings at other people's houses, or I'd have them at Delancey Street, the aforementioned halfway house, or I'd have them at a union hall. I'd have them somewhere else. I'd have a meetup. But we'd still see it as a house meeting. So how are you going to do a house meeting? The volunteer corps. And by that, not only recruiting them, but asking people, bring your resume, tell us what you do. I remember waiting to go into a meeting, a message meeting. Now this is over 10 years ago, 2004 campaign in San Francisco. And we're at our headquarters across from the TikTok diner, and I'm a little early, so I go and I chat up the lady in the front, and I say, oh, why are you here answering the phone? She says, oh, I retired, I have time. I said, where'd you retire from? She said, I worked at a bank. Oh, what did you do? I did community relations and marketing. And I was like, well, I should be answering the phones, and you should be in that message meeting, because she's done that for 30 years, but nobody knew it because no one had asked her. So I thought, okay, from now on, when I'm working on a campaign, I want to know the resumes. I said, bring your resume to volunteer. We'll figure out what you can do. Maybe she should have been on the phones, but also in the meeting. Maybe there's other expertise that people have that you just blow right by because you only know them as the person that you're walking precincts with or making phone calls with, and you don't ask them, do you know other languages? Are you good with that? What we always talk about is what kind of skills can you connect people with? Some people, I have great friends, and they're like, I do not want to talk to voters. I just don't. I don't want to talk to voters. So I'll set up your operating system. I will, stack the literature, put a little Band-Aid around it, or a rubber band around it. I will organize your efforts. I'll go get the pizza and bring it to people. I'll do whatever you want. I just don't put me on the phone, and I'm not going to be out there walking. I will drive them, the strike team, to walk, drop them off and pick them up at the bottom of the hill, but I don't want to talk to voters. I'm like, okay, we got a plan for you. You don't have to talk to voters, okay? So, but in the old days, I would have been like, what do you mean you don't want to talk to voters? All right, then I will see you after the election, right? No, now I'm like, okay, I've got stuff for you to do. By the end, you might be begging to talk to voters. But point being, think about what people can do and let them help the way they want to help, the way they want to live. They're going to be happier, and you'll be happier. And finally, you need your election protection team, and that's where all the legal eagles come in, the lawyers who don't have a lot of time but have it at the end, people who can be observers, people who've been around this a very long time, the people who've worked in and out of the courthouse or wherever they have the file, people who are retired from working in the elections office who know how counts are supposed to go, people who have been very active, especially here, active military.
Who has a lifetime of grassroots organizing experience. She's a graduate of the University of California, Hastings College of Law, and the Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. As you might suspect, she's no stranger to democratic politics, government, and she's also no stranger to the nonprofit sector. She served as a deputy city attorney and prosecutor for the city of San Francisco, HUD special counsel in the Clinton Gore administration, that is the first President Clinton, a chief of staff on Capitol Hill, and a volunteer board member for the National AIDS Memorial Grove, the New Leaders Council, and the Young Democrats of America. Right now, she serves as the chair of the California Democratic Party Women's Caucus and has served as an executive director for their state's party. She's also led the state's party platform committee for 13 years and has been elected 5 times to the Democratic National Committee, where she co-founded the DNC Veterans and Military Families Council. Finally, I should mention that Christine's brought along her daughter, Bella, who's currently with our babysitter extraordinaire, Michelle Galoyu. I think they're out exploring Waikiki and doing arts and crafts and all sorts of wonderful things. So I wanted to thank Michelle for helping us out. And if you see Bella later, say hi. So without any further ado, here is Christine Pelosi.
And now, good morning. Good morning. Most of you have met Bella. She was the one passing out the little postcard, and she'll make a cameo appearance in the slideshow. I'm so happy to be here back in Hawaii. We've always had a very special connection, obviously, to the Young Democrats of America, having been one myself and also serving on the board and as the interim executive director in 2011, where we did 10 of these boot camps in 10 months in 10 different states and organized with good friends like Justin and Igor from California and some newer friends among you to make sure that even after the terrible elections of 2010, people knew the Young Democrats weren't backing down, that we were stepping forward, and that we saw our call to service as being something very critical to making sure that President Obama's agenda and that Leader Pelosi and Leader Reid's agenda did not get lost or washed away in a Tea Party wave, and we'll be talking about that. I know last night that you were at Pearl Harbor, and I was thinking of that when I was thinking of my grandfather, my mother's father, was in Congress from Baltimore, Maryland during the time of the attack on Pearl Harbor. And the next day when Congress met, he gave a brief but bold statement on the floor in full support President Roosevelt. And so it is always with historic family connection that I think of Hawaii. And of course, my dear husband, Peter, Bella's dad, and I were here on our honeymoon. So we have thoughts ranging from the historic to the romantic, to the democratic, and to the fun. So now with Bella being the fourth generation of our family with the connection to Hawaii, we thank you so much for having us here and the work that we're going to do together today and into the future. As Tyler mentioned, I have been working in politics, engaged in politics from a very young age. And as I just told you, my mom grew up in Baltimore where her father was the mayor. And so when she met my dad and they got married and they moved to his hometown of California, San Francisco, years later, she didn't ever think she would go into politics, and she didn't raise us as children of a politician or even grandchildren of a politician. We were a family that was very politically motivated, but from really a civics perspective. And so when we were really little, I remember even still being in New York, and my first memory was being in a stroller with two of my siblings and looking up at my mom and as she was pushing us through the apartment buildings of New York City. And later when I wrote my first book, I said, Mom, how is it possible that you managed to get into all those apartment buildings with us and all that political literature, past those no solicitation signs? And she said, I was a mother with 3 children in a stroller. Who was going to stop me? And we could never have imagined then that 40 years later, from 3,000 miles away from her own building, her own political base, that she would be elected to Congress and elected by her peers to be the first woman speaker of the House of Representatives. But I tell you that to say, not only because I'm proud of her, but because that's what politics is about. It's not a great leap to power. It's not an automatic call to a family service, but it's the steps that you take with your neighbors along the way. All of you know this, which is why you're here. When you think back to your own call to service, and we'll get into this with our first exercise of messaging, when you think about your first call to service, it may have been like us, that you were pushed in a stroller, and then you eventually got there voluntarily once you could walk forward or away from the activity. It may have been that your family were conservative Republicans, and you were too for a while until you decided to step out on your own. Or you could have not been in politics at all until, like our chair, you came into it as a young Democrat, as an adult, and decided that, as the ancient Greeks said, you may not have an interest in politics, but politics will always have an interest in you. So depending on where you entered, to some degree that's your touchstone. And that's always where we begin. And so when I came today and wanted to do a boot camp, one of the things that I really wanted to share with you and talk to you about was how to put together a winning campaign, a winning public service campaign. It could be a political run for office. It could be the campaign we were talking about before I came on about work we're doing in California to try to end gender bias in workers' comp, which is not taking the form of a political campaign, but an organizing effort among injured workers and the unions and the attorneys who represent them. So whether you're talking about trying to pass legislation, or whether you're trying to talk about getting your own self elected, or whether you're trying to make sure that you can, for this now annual event, and I hope you'll have me back, consider this my audition tape, Tyler, trying to grow and expand your mission, or whether or not you're taking a look at President Obama and something that he's asking us to do, or Hillary Clinton, who just announced her campaign for president this morning, and saying, let's get a checklist. Let me go run through the checklist. Let's see, what's the mission? What's the call to service? What's the message? How do I fit in? How organized are they? Before I give my time, what are some of the best practices I expect this campaign, this effort to be a part of? And if it doesn't have those elements, are they interested in welcoming me to help fill those in? So, as my mom would say, and said in her best-selling book, know your power. Understand the strength you have as a volunteer and what you bring, because you have an invaluable commodity, and that is your own call to service and your choice about what to do with your time and your reputation and your energy and your money. So I always say about running for office, look, if you want to run, run. The only thing you're wasting is your time and other people's money. So it's one thing to be a candidate and send a message. But if you're on the receiving end of that and you say, well, wait, I'm the volunteer. I'm the one that's got to to put the phone banks together. I'm the one that has to go ask my friends who don't have a lot of money or for bartered goods or services. I'm the one that has to get out there and be an ambassador. What's this thing made of, right? What's this person made of? What's this campaign made of? Does it have, as my father-in-law, Phil Kaufman, who made a movie that you all have read the book or seen the movie, it's called The Right Stuff, about astronauts. But we always ask, who's got the right stuff, right? Who's got the stuff of what it takes? These were military men that had nothing to do with flying to the moon, right? They were test pilots. All of a sudden, the next thing you know, they were astronauts. But they looked and said, where is the raw talent there? Who has what it takes? So a lot of what I do as I travel the country and I work for my firm, Democracy Partners, and I am an active volunteer chairing my women's caucus and working on the DNC, is I'm like a talent scout. Who's got the right stuff? Or in our case, the left stuff, right? So let's get underway with a quick boot camp, and then we'll bring people up to start doing, because this is boot camp. When we first started this, I said it's got to be boot camp, because if I call it a training and we're trying to train people to run for office, people are going to say, I don't want to be trained, and if I am, I'm not going to be trained by you. Now remember, my mother's name was not a household name at that time. She was a Democratic minority leader in 2005 when we started going on the road, convinced that we could win the House. And people were like, yeah, that's really nice, that's really interesting. Maybe we can get the Senate. You're going to win the House in 2012 in Hillary's second term as president. That's what they said. Different map, different president, obviously. But we believed that we could find people if we used this method, which came a lot out of our friends in labor, and thank you to the House of Labor for helping sponsor us today and always being with us. And it came out of our experience in California, where we knew how to run campaigns and we knew how to win. And we knew how to have people stand up for something and keep standing up when times got tough. And we turned our state, you think of us as blue California, but I grew up, it was very red. It's a very bizarre state in that, we're the state of Ronald Reagan and Jerry Brown. Hard to get more different than that. But we have a range, and I was executive director of the party when we were trending blue. We were purple. We were like a blue shade of purple at the time. So we did a lot of the shift, but it wasn't until Clinton that we voted for a president since LBJ, and then, of course, it became consistent and reliable after that. So keeping in mind that this is a boot camp I do for myself all the time. I run through it anytime anyone asks me for help or says they're going to run for something. And this should not only help you focus your mind on what you want, but also make you the talent scouts for other people. So let's begin. Your call to service is your message to the future. They say children are messengers to a future we won't see. Of course, now we look at it and we say, what do we want that future to look like? What am I sending? What am I sending to Bella's generation? What kind of an equality generation am I trying to build so that when she grows up, she and her classmates will have a different kind of world? Today's kindergartners are going to be, by the time they're voters, can we have solved some of these intractable problems, or at least created a political solution so that the fight about these problems is a matter of us defending a more positive status quo rather than fighting an unjust status quo. That's why, as a couple of you caught me saying at the end of the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd always say, after liberty and justice for all, I always add the words, someday. Well, if that day is going to be sooner rather than later, we need a message to the future that we can start sending now. So, number one, how do we get there? Number one, we identify our call to service. In 10 years, dozens of these boot camps in 40 states and 3 foreign countries, hundreds of candidates, thousands of volunteers. There's always one fundamental question. And when I was writing my book, so many people, Democratic, Republican, Independent, people who didn't even know each other, didn't even like each other, ended up with the same thing. When I'd say, what do you look for in politics? And they'd say, there are 2 kinds of people. Someone who wants to do something or someone who wants to be something. Come on, people. 5 Guys is the name of a burger joint. It shouldn't be an organizing panel. There was a campaign for Congress that just sent out an email about their leadership team. Now the candidate is a man of color. All 5 people on the team were guys. 5 guys. And he's running for Congress in California in the 21st century. It's like, are you kidding? You couldn't find one woman? Do you put on the team, even if she has a, God forbid you should have her in the top echelon, but find her and put her in there. It was like, you guys don't even care about appearances. That's how bad you are. So I'll be using them a lot. Anyway, and here's what happens with women. And it's just a fact. If you're single, you can't attract somebody. If you're married, you're putting your career over them. If you have a kid, whether it's me with little Bella or my mom when she ran for Congress and I was in college, and it's, why aren't you taking care of him? If you're divorced, you couldn't keep him, but if he's dead, you killed him. And that's just what people think. They really, really do. When we had a woman who ran for office and her husband died, and they're like, it's okay, you can stay home. You don't need to run again. When the man was running for office, same, there's 2 Democrats, by the way. Man's running for office, his wife dies, the casserole kitties were out the next day. Oh, we're going to do this, we're going to support you, Peter, you just keep running. It's like, well, where was that support for the woman, right? And as I said, most of this comes down to women needing to get out of our own way and other women of our generation or older not protecting us from ourselves. I remember I got this great award when I was in the DA's office. It was the Italian-Israeli Irish Society. I think it was an excuse to have a lively, festive alcoholic lunch once a year. However, they also gave us these awards. So I was one of the Italian honorees. I'm like, this is great, this is fun. I sell tickets to my prosecutor colleagues, some public defenders, some judges and cops. And we have this big room full of all these people, and I'm getting ready to make my big speech about the public service of Caritas and Tikkun Olam and all the ways that the cultures are together. And this woman, Mama Tina, whom we loved, and I loved, who was very active in the community, she came over, she says, Christine, congratulations, but I'm praying for your husband. And I think, oh, she thinks I'm one of my 2 sisters who's already married. So I say, Mama Tina, it's Christine, I don't have a husband. I know, she says, that's why I'm praying for him. She was my friend. My colleagues laughed for years. So, Mama Tina, I got the husband. But define your message. Next, define your message. We're going to do this together. But really quickly, your message is not only what you say about you, but how you define the opposition, how they define you, and how you define them. So it has to be a counterpunch. So think of it this way. You say, oh, that's easy. I'm running against Satan. Well, guess what? Even Satan has a devil's advocate, right? You ever heard of an angel's advocate? No. There's going to be a devil's advocate right up in that message box, right? The well, actually crowd will jump in. So even if you think that you're running like, I'm an angel and they're Satan, that devil's advocate is still going to be there in there. More likely, you're the fighter, they're the diplomat. Or you're the diplomat running against a fighter. Or you're the working mom and they're the grandfather who's so patriarchal he doesn't even support his own daughters working outside the home. Or whatever your contrast is, define your contrast in a clear way so that the voters know what you're for, what they're about, but also that you're being honest with them, right? You're not saying, well, I'm great and this other person's terrible. Well, I'm a Democrat and they're Republican, so you should be for me. Well, okay, that might get you on the phone, but that's not your career. It's really a matter of saying, what is our service about? And not only that, but let's look at it. What's our message? Let's message box it, as you all are about to do. Who can be my allies, alumni, and ambassadors? Because some things I can't say for myself, but other people can say them for me, right? You may do a whole lot of great casework. First of all, if you did and you're in office and you did casework, or you're a lawyer like me and you have clients who are satisfied, you can't say, my clients love me. You got to get a former client out there who's willing to say, she did a good job. His office gave me good service, right? You need that third-party validator. It can't just be you or your campaign. And you got to think about what media strategies are going to work. If you're trying to reach people, you have to go where and how they live. So if you're trying to track young people, sure, we can do this all hashtag YDA Pacific. I hope you're tweeting, by the way. That's all fine and good to let other people know what's going on. But when it comes down to actually navigating an approach, you need one-on-one conversations. It has to be peer-to-peer. Or as the late, great president of AFSCME, Jerry McEntee, always used to say, it has to be neighbor to neighbor and not stranger to stranger. So making sure that you have that personal touch. Who's raising money for or against you? Because sometimes the money is the message, right? If you're running against a developer or something, maybe the fact that all their money comes from one place, or all their money comes from out of state and not on the island, or maybe it's somebody who gets all their money, says they won't take PAC money and then they change their mind, whatever it is, the money is often the message. And finally, the mobilization tactics that you can use, and when you want to employ that person. If you have a really good person who can deliver a message, when do you want to deploy that person and how, knowing that people are always going to be under attack. I'll give you an example. I talked to some friends at a wonderful group called Moms Rising. Have any of you heard of Moms Rising? You will now. They're a great group. Of course, Justin does. They're based out of Oakland. They're founded by Joan Blades, who co-founded Move On. Any Move On? Here? Okay. So Joan started Moms Rising, and it basically started with a motherhood manifesto. You've seen their work because they've been fighting for paid sick days and raising the minimum wage and fair pay at work and paid family leave. And they're a terrific organization of grassroots moms. They were encouraged, shall we say, by some to endorse Hillary Clinton for president. And I told them, that's the last thing you should do, which is kind of not what they expected on the phone, but maybe that's why they called me, to give them some country. I said, that's the last thing you want to do, because she's going to be out there talking about your message, because your message is more popular than anybody. Your message polls at like 70%. 70% of Americans want to raise the wage, to have fair pay, to have sick paid, to have fair scheduling, all those things that if you saw Hillary's announcement this morning, or you saw the Democrats on the bus doing the Women Succeed bus tour, or you saw the White House Family Succeed Summit that they had last summer. It's all the same message that we've all been talking about, right? And some of the things that Tyler talked about that you have already here in Hawaii that we would like to have on the mainland. Well, I said, if you go in there, no offense, but it's just going to be your ideas that their policy director is going to churn out into white papers, and that's it. But if you stay on the outside, and you don't endorse, then you can say, we commend her for having our agenda, and now we want every Republican and every other Democrat in the race to adopt our agenda too. Then you're independent. Then you have much more strength. So it may feel good for you to say, oh, we're a part of the presidential campaign, but you will actually be more effective and more believed if you're on the outside. The other thing is, look at what they do to Hillary. Look at what they do to Bill. Look at what they do to Chelsea. Look at what they do to Nancy. Look at what they do to Barack. Look at what they do to Michelle. They're going to do that to each and every one of your moms. You're going to go from a group that has 1 million moms to, remember what, I don't know if any of you remember what they did in the first healthcare fight we did for S-Chip against Gourmet Frost and his family from Baltimore. Maybe you remember little Marcellus Owens, the little boy in the vest that was next to Barack Obama when he signed the health care bill. Remember that little picture of the little boy there? How they attacked him and said, your mother shouldn't have gotten coverage anyway. It's her own fault. She died because she was obese and she wasn't taking care of herself, and she'd taken care of herself. They would have found, the doctor would have found the cancer sooner. This is what the right one was saying to a 10-year-old boy who had lost his mother. Okay, that's what they do. So I said, do you really want your moms to get that? No, you don't. So you stay on the outside, then you're the moms fighting for change. You go on the inside, you automatically get wrapped up in a message box. And you really expose yourself. And hey, I was born ready, so I don't mind this fight. You can believe the things they say about me. Maybe I'll tell you about them in the Q&A. But point being, or you could Google me and find out. But the point is, you have to think about it. How much risk do I want to take? And if I'm part of an organization or advising an organization of people who are nice people, my husband's in the movie industry. He's a non-combatant in the political world, right? We try to keep him, But the day that we announced our daughter's birth, people said, well, if you're so pro-choice, why don't you just have an abortion? As if you couldn't choose to have a child. That was the comment section reaction to the birth announcement. And I told him, honey, I told you when we started dating not to read the comments. I don't know why you chose to read the comments now. But that's the reality, right? That's what you face. I can take it. But nice, normal people probably can't. So you need to think about who you're going to bring in and set up for a big take. Next, knowing your community. And we're going to get into this too a little bit more deeply together, and you're going to do a little work amongst yourselves here. Who are the people? How many people live there? How old are they? How do they live? I went to Hungary and did a boot camp, democracy boot camp there, and I was asking the question. We had 4 different boot camps, and so when I asked the people that ran the Hungarian nonprofits, how old are the people and how do they live together? I said, well, the average age is in the 40s, and they usually live, maximum 2 generations together. Then we did a boot camp for the Roma, who are displaced indigenous persons in Romania and Hungary. And I said, how old are the people? Simple question, right? They said, average age in the 20s, and they usually live 3 and 4 generations together. Okay, whoa, before we even started on the rest of the list, we already had a huge contrast. And so I told them, I said, this reminds me of Katrina, being in New Orleans after Katrina, because in the whiter, wealthier parts, it was single-family dwellings or renters, and mostly white, and they were able to recoup relatively quickly. Yes, it's devastating, but they had renter's insurance, they were able to go from one place to rent to another. If you went to the Ninth Ward, however, they were multi-generational, living in a single-family home, not only several generations, but extended out with cousins, all living in the same home, which was the sole source of wealth. And so when Dennis Hastert, the then Speaker of the House, said, plow it over, remember he said bulldoze over New Orleans, that was his solution. There went every bit of wealth they had, every bit of family they had, every bit of community they had, and therefore when we went to, the Democratic National Committee went to New Orleans 6 months after Katrina, downtown had recovered, more or less. The Ninth Ward still looked like the storm had blown in 2 weeks before. So it starts with who are the people, where do they live, and how are they living? You could have very different answers in very different islands and very different parts of the island. So being aware of that. The jobs, who are the employers, the small businesses? Most of the jobs that are created out of new businesses. So who's creating new businesses and what do they look like? The schools, pre-K through postgraduate. What are the schools? Who's going to school? Who can afford to go to school? What does kindergarten look like? Probably depends on whether or not you've got Head Start. Probably depends on how much pre-K you have.